Welcome back into the Ohio MMA podcast. I'm your host, David McKinney. Joining me on today's episode is a guy that I go way back with, back long time, man, in the 2000s. Brian Rogers, what's up, man?
Not too much. I was thinking about that. I appreciate the warm welcome. I'm like, man, I will have fought across 3 decades.
Yeah, but you're only old if you let yourself be old or let yourself get old. So, the reason you're on the podcast today is something I'm super excited about. You are returning to fighting MMA after an 8-year layoff, fighting in the main event August 23rd against Dustin Pape at AFP 103. So first off, man, I know that I think you announced earlier this year your intentions to get back into fighting. I know you were training a little bit last year with Stipe for his fight with John Jones. Just talk about the journey to come back to fighting and what made you make that decision.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity to speak and tell my story. I think fighting and jiu-jitsu are synonymous. Fighting and martial arts are synonymous, but they're two different aspects. My last fight was in March of 2017 for Paramount MMA. Previous to that was with RFO in Ohio in 2017. And then my son was born February of 2017. And that last fight, I tore my labrum and tore my rotator cuff and was like, needed to do 9 months of surgery, 9 months of therapy. And then I started a business and I just kind of fell off. From 2017 to 2021, I didn't really do anything. I worked out a little bit here or there, but didn't do much. I popped into FactoryX to grapple. That's about it. 2021 came and I started, I had gotten divorced and life has changed in a lot of directions. And I was like, I got to get back on the mat. I got to find an outlet. And so from 2021 to 2023, 2021 to 2024, really, I put my focus on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling and started hitting a lot of tournaments, went to some ADCCs, won a match at the qualifier in Vegas amongst some good grapplers, won a Denver Open, had a lot of good grappling industries turnouts. And I was like, man, my Jiu-Jitsu is a little bit better than I remember it. So those are some things that were starting to build confidence and just getting my body back going. I've watched and kept up with the game, 2021 till now. But the big reason is, to be direct, my children don't really know who I am. They have an idea of who I am, but not a full, transparent picture of who I am and my character, and really know the people who I care about, who love me and who I love and things like that. And I believe I've been alienated from my kids unjustly for a lot of reasons. And none, for the record, I have no violence in my history or background. I haven't been paid for on TV or anything like that. It's just been poor communication. Well, in my personal journey, I decided to get back into martial arts, and I decided to take a more active approach to fighting for my children, which consisted of researching attorneys and just learning more about my rights, because I just wasn't, frankly, very educated. And I've been pursuing more information. And then in order to align my journey goals, I decided to do everything kind of in a 3-part way: mind, body, spirit. And part of that was to compete again. I'm probably not competing to be the best in the world anymore, but I'm playing a different game in terms of the marathon of life. And I believe anything is possible at any time. And so in this chapter, we just decided to do this for our own kind of personal development journey. I'm making a film to kind of speak about this as well.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because a lot of fighters, when they go out, they don't get to go out their own way. And I know I was very interesting. You got your release from Bellator. You had I think 12 Bellator fights, and you came back on the regional scene. And I was really excited for me just to be able to see you fight, and locally again. And you had two very impressive wins. You had the knockout over Lewis Rumsey, and then the title win at the Paramount event. And you were still young, and I think you were in your early mid-30s, as I like to say, but still young in the fight game. So was that hard? I mean, obviously I know the injury, but was it hard to kind of walk away from that? I know that obviously other things happen, and that happens to all of us, but did you feel like you were leaving something on the table when you walked away, especially coming off of, potentially getting back to a big show with 1 or 2 more wins?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time when that happened, my manager was Jim Walter at the time, and he had talked to Mick Maynard, and Mick was like, he needs to win 3 in a row and look good, and we'll sign him at 205. Historically, we all know what the UFC 205 division has looked like. You know what I mean? There's peaks and valleys. So I was energized by that. Because of life and circumstances, I was still trying to figure out how to make my body a 205 body. I played football in college at Walsh University at about 225 to 235 freshman through senior year. But yeah, it was super energizing, excited to get back. And then it just, it felt like every month I was going to start training. Every month I'm going to start training. Next month I'm going to do this. Oh, I got to get busy with the business. I had some naivety about me in terms of I thought I was going to be like some hybrid of Gary Vee and The Rock within 6 months of starting my first agency. Really did. But also was just dealing with some challenges. Like I had a newborn son. I had, for those of you out there who are family of athletes or high performers or very driven people, you know who your loved ones are, and it takes a different kind of space and energy to like be with a creative spirit, and to support them in that career. There's a good thing where LeBron talks about sacrifice that you should look up around and surround family. But anyway, I said to say, I did not feel like I had the best support system who had a full conscious awareness around the energy it would take. David, I think I was a good fighter who worked really hard, but I don't think I was a world-class talent. I think I had world-class work capability and will with a pretty good athletic frame.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of the things too that I noticed, from you from a very early stage, and I think we kind of clicked on this, is you realized that fighting was not just about what happened in the cage, right? You were from your very beginning of your career, early on in your career, realized that it was about the full 360 of fighting, branding, marketing yourself, making sure that you understand different sides of the business. Do you feel like that helped? I mean, obviously it did help you in your career, but how do you think that helped you, and what was kind of the thought process and understanding the full aspect of becoming a fighter? Because there's some exciting fighters out there who don't sell tickets, and you were never that guy.
yeah,
You were the guy that you knew that you had to go out there, be exciting, do lots of interviews, be interesting, do more than just what was inside the cage, and you had a very unique brand from the beginning, and I feel like that was definitely very intentional, and not a lot of fighters do that. So what, like maybe a young fighter that's coming up, like what would you say to them of like what are some tips and things that you would help instill maybe in the next generation?
yeah. I'm gonna answer that first, and I'll reverse back to my story. For any young fighter out there, you need to figure out who you are right now and who you want to be. Who you are right now and who you want to be. And I really preach audit yourself, don't judge. When I was a college football player, high school athlete, we watched the tape and the film. If I stepped wrong, if I took the ring gap, I'd audit it. And if we had too many of those in a 4-quarter game, that's not a good game. And I just have to audit and look at that. In our life, in our martial arts, our skills, our training, our habits, our patterns, our beliefs, our behaviors, we have to take a look at those and really look at those if those are in alignment with the direction we want to go. And I tell people to, like, again, audit, don't judge, but take a good look at that and see if you can be honest with yourself. Can you look at what the scoreboard is in your life and the things are happening? Look at yourself in the mirror and just playfully read that out loud or say it out loud or say your goals. It sounds crazy, but whether some things you can do or not do with that are like weird differentiators that can get a person there. So I'd say as an athlete, figure out who you are, figure out who you want to be. I'm a big believer in the idea of process, performance, outcome, and the idea of goal setting. We all have outcome goals. And so for MMA, we'll use somebody who wants to be the welterweight champion of the world, a really contested division. If you want to be the world champion of the world in the welterweight division, you're going to have to fight 5-minute rounds. Like that's just, you got to be prepared for that. Okay. Now, if I'm an amateur or a low-level pro, that means I got to have great condition. I can't wait to get in shape. I have to have Marab conditioning. It needs to be the goal. GSP condition needs to be the goal. I need to put good strength and conditioning, good nutrition in my process when I'm a nothing nobody on the regional scene. A nothing nobody on the regional scene, you need to be eating as best as your financial means you can to build the habit and the pattern with whatever food or resources you have. That consistency is going to give you a better daily performance. Because a lot of y'all are coming in the gym underfueled, haven't had any resources, haven't had protein, haven't ate the right things, the right carbs, and you're just in here on gut, will, and determination. Athletes are out there, guys. This is going to change. But if you eat really well every day, you're going to have a better daily performance in the gym. When you can compound those two things, that's going to lead you to the desired outcome. That's the doing it the right thing that everyone talks about. You're doing the right things in the gym. He's doing the right things off the field. He's building habits and patterns in a systematic way that gets to the big idea of what he wants to do. And so I'd say for my friends out there, it's like, listen, there's a lot of distractions. My phone's buzzing right now. You got to figure out some of your habits and patterns and find little small wins that challenge yourself, just like you would in the gym. Small win might be getting up 15 minutes earlier and doing that breath work you've been putting off, or meditating or reading the Bible or whatever it may be. The things we hear about the champions do, they started that stuff a while ago, y'all. They started that stuff a while ago.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, that was not what I expected you to say at all, but that is a great great answer. So talk about your career and your journey, and the less maybe so from the obviously the training. Essentially, I think what you said is train like a champion or prepare like a champion from day one. Yourself, like what everything I've heard you talk about. When you were signed to Bellator, you immediately you were in like meetings with some of the sponsors, and because you were a very marketable guy, what did you do to make yourself marketable early on in your career?
I'm a product of a good environment, being from Kent, Ohio, going to Kent Roosevelt, having two good parents. That I'd say is the base of it. And within that, outside of my parents, the best examples were teachers and coaches around me. I saw teachers and coaches operate in a way they were looking to give, to help people. And I always identified as an athlete. I didn't play football, wrestle, or do track till 8th grade, but I was an active kid. Teachers and coaches and educators were people who were giving me information and doing it, communicating in a way that seemed good, felt good. And I always thought, oh, the world just needs more of what I'm getting. Because I realized even at a young age that like not everybody's in the same environment as I am, or sees some of the way of things that I see. So that was kind of the base of me. And then as I was kind of defining marketing who I am, I just wanted to be confident. I wanted to be kind. I wanted to be nice. And I wanted to be adamant about what I really believed. And I've always just tried to bring my authentic self to any space in that area. And I was fortunate to have a good education. I communicate better than a lot of mixed martial arts athletes in the world. And I was in the right place at the right time with the right skill set. That in a way.
Yeah, and so looking back through your career, I was looking at your record, and I feel like that it definitely took me down memory lane a little bit, and there were some interesting things where I'm like, oh man, I like kind of forgot about that. Like from starting out your pro debut and being on Iron Ring, which I'm sure there's some great stories from that on BET, and I was reading a little bit about kind of because I remember I was not obviously the target audience for that, but I remember like hearing about it and being like, wow, this is such an interesting experiment, right? Like the Ultimate Fighter for for a BET crowd, and the people they brought in were huge names, but then going and fighting the Shine Fights, which is that was the the one event where that was where I think I first saw you fight, and you were the very first fight of the night. First event I sat cage side at, fun fact, and I remember you threw a kick in the beginning of the fight, and I like the thunderousness of I'd been to MMA events before, and you're like you kind of get desensitized to the violence a little bit. Sitting cage side, and you're the very first fight. Brian Rogers is the first fight of the night, and he's throwing a body kick and blasting this guy. You're like, oh my goodness! Like I was kind of like shell shocked a little bit. Like now today, it's like, but that's like a core memory of me being in the MMA world, and Shine Fights is a whole interesting story in and of itself as well. Then fighting for NAFS, and then going to kind of doing your own thing and fighting for the Dan Bobish promotion, which I know that obviously ruffled some feathers. And then the Strike Force fight in Columbus, which I know you like. I remember you campaigning to be on that card, and then campaigning to try to get signed by Strike Force, and they passed for whatever reason. Then you're like signed with Bellator, and then your whole Bellator run, and it was like so interesting seeing just going back down through it, what's one or two things that you remember from your career that like are you like nostalgic about, or like just really good stories?
You touched on, well, I'll go from regional. My first amateur fight, I'll kind of go. I'll go amateur fight. I almost passed out right afterwards. I won my first run by TKO in the late second. I did not manage my breath work at all. My dad and my uncle were like, "You could never do this again." That was my first amateur fight, guys. It was not good. We won, but we were on oxygen afterwards. That's memorable. And then I'll say local in the regional scene. I still have a good relationship with Greg Kalikas and NWFS, and I appreciate that. As who's it? Mikado recently said when he was screaming at one of the events, he was screaming free market capitalism. But for me, I was going like, listen, I need to build my brand and it can't just be in this one portal. And Greg was great to us and things like that. But it was also time. It's like, I've only got so many months I can do this. And I looked up before I got signed to Bellator, I fought 5 times, I think, between 2011 or 2010 and 2011 within a 12-month period. But that was, for me, it was kind of like that reason to take those steps. For me, like my mentality is I was a kid who grew up on Bruce Lee movies, Mike Tyson, and pro wrestling and kung fu movies. And so when to me, that's how you fought. It had to be larger than life. Like if it didn't look like what I grew up watching on TV, what I've seen the best in the world do, then I'm not really fighting. I'm trying to do what the superheroes do. And honestly, as upon a reflection of being away, like sometimes like, why did you always fight at this pace? And I was like, oh, Brian, every time you fight, it's that 30-second clip in the action. In my brain, it's that 30-second clip in the action movie you're watching. Where it's but I'm trying to create that over 15 minutes, and I just was on the gas for that entire time sometimes. So when you talk about the thunderous kick, I think about that like, all right, hit him with that Batman stuff right off the top.
It is so interesting. And that literally was, I mean, I was working for a college newspaper. They were like, hey, come cover this event. And I loved him. And I was a huge fan at the time. And I didn't really even know that there was a local scene. And Shine, they were not trying to be a local promotion, but they just happened to have a bunch of Ohio State connections, did an event in Columbus. And they're like, hey, come sit cage side. And I'm like, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I'm like, I did not know what I was getting in for, because I was like, I'd been to a couple UFC events, and you're sitting nosebleeds, and it's different being cage side. And that was honestly, that event was one of the things that got me hooked on it. But one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about. So you have been training a lot. I know you said that you were at FactoryX, and I know that you've been doing some strong style. Are you still kind of training in between those two places, or what's the training looking like for this fight?
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been coming out of my martial arts era. I've wanted to make part of my lifestyle being spending 50% of my time in Colorado and 50% of my time in Northeast Ohio. And it's because I do branding, marketing, and personal development, my own business, Reciprocity Creative Coalition. So starting last August, when I came back and really decided, I've just been back and forth and just trying to step into a person who's, I like to call myself bi-Midwestal. Some people are New York, LA, bi-coastal, bi-Midwestal. That's what I've tried to step into as an entrepreneur, a martial artist who spends part of his time in Ohio and Colorado and is building new relationships, reestablishing relationships to do hopefully work for friends, family, people, and community. But I spent a lot of November and December in Ohio. December last year was the first time I had hard sparred in like 8 years. I dropped a video about that on Instagram. I was going with my buddy Big John Cunningham, who's a former Atlanta Falcon and Kent State Golden Flash football player. He's 2-1 in the 2-1 professional record with PFL wins. That was some of my first sparring back, and that is a different size human. But it's been, so November, December was a lot of strong style. In January, I helped my buddy Chris Camozzi get ready for what would be his April title defense at his BKFC championship. So a lot of strength and conditioning August 2024 in Denver, all the way up into being able to spar in Cleveland, December. Come back to Colorado. I'm not ready for full MMA yet. So I'm still trying to build and condition my body. So I focused on boxing with Chris Camozzi and his coach Jake at Genesis Training Center, and that was with Chris through that whole camp. Unfortunately didn't make it to Italy, but did that about late January, February up until March. Spent a good amount of time in Ohio in March, and then April and May was Colorado. Mid-May was back to Ohio. Mid-July was back to Colorado. Kind of 3 weeks on, 4 weeks off for training camp right now. Kind of switching, doing at least 2 weeks in each space between Ohio and Colorado and FactoryX and Strong Style.
Yeah, that seems like such an interesting. I mean, again, knowing you're going to do it your way, man, and I feel like that's always so interesting that you've kind of made and created kind of your reality and especially in your fight career.
I
I know
appreciate you sharing that.
one of the things that I noticed and I think is really interesting leading up to this is you are working on a movie documentary, and that's such an interesting thing. What are some? I know that you're trying to get it across the finish line, so definitely let people know how they can help you with that. But what are some interesting things that you've learned in that process, the movie making process, that maybe kind of opened your eyes to that side of things?
It's interesting. I've probably had 6 to 8 different, I'd say, camera operators. The person who's going to help me movie design and set produce and architect, that's got to be an architect besides me, and the vision and the editing and the storyboard and all that. It cannot be me alone. There's different levels to production. It depends what type of film you want to shoot. But like, there's people making movies off iPhones. We've done this through like some Sonys, some Red cameras. You'll see we're doing very mixed media. A lot on my DJI Pocket 3. And a mix of like 6 to 8 creators between Ohio and Colorado and myself. And even kind of what you see on social are modern social media clips of it that in the movie, when it's documentary style, with like, there's more context to what's actually happening and going on, you know, in different aspects of life. Here's what when this happened from an injury perspective or a life perspective or a team perspective, or just like the other things that are just happening, you know. There'll be some of that.
That's that. Yeah, I'm really interested to see it when it's all done and put together. So for this fight, you are fighting for American Fight Promotions, newer promotion. That's their third event. I know you had talked, you had tried to fight for another promotion maybe a couple of months ago, but it didn't come to fruition. What's the thought process, or what's what's it been like working with AFP? And I know that they definitely have some big goals and some big things. It seems like it's a mutually beneficial arrangement for this fight. But what's it like working with that promotion and kind of, you don't have to necessarily compare or contrast to other promotions, but what's it like working with them and a newer promotion with that maybe does have their sights set on trying to make it make a bigger thing than just a local promotion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting as you think about everyone out there watching and they look at these organizations. It's harder to do than you think. I carried some experiences and events myself, and it's harder to do what you think. But AFE, they've done a great job, and I think that starts with like Dave's a real fan and very passionate about the sport. You know what I mean? You mentioned Cage Thunder. He used to work with them, some of his brands and his businesses, and then started AFP to be able to lead under his own vision. He's intelligent. He's put a great team around him. Nicole is his matchmaker. I think that helps a lot in the Northeast Ohio and the Midwest space and area. She's a vet who a lot of people know. She's got outstanding relationships. She communicates well. So that helps, you know. Their production is really good. You know, the lights, the way they put access to everything. For some fighters and athletes, the BKFC partnership is going to be big for them. That's going to be a feeder and a thing like that back and forth. And Dave was able to pull up and have conversations. Like, we had several 2 or 3 meetings, phone calls, texts, and it's nice to get to know a person and connect in that way as well. And so that's something I appreciate about the process of building a relationship and getting something done.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and I always, especially, they clearly have done things in the right way, seeing the fight cards they've put on just in a short period of time, and a lot of that doesn't happen by accident, right? It's not just like you show up and throw money at stuff and you're like, hey, so yeah, like you said, it is harder than what you think, and it is interesting seeing the journey of because Ohio. I mean, I've been around local Ohio MMA for a long time, and you see promoters come and go, and you see like what people have done really well and then what people have not done really well. And you're like, the people that have done well are like the ones, yes, like you said, put great teams around them, put on, focus on the show, and then build the relationships, right? And keep those relationships, because it's a lot easier to burn bridges than it is to build bridges, especially in a community that is so small, right? And there's not a lot of options once you start burning bridges of where to go and what to do, because your options are going to run out quickly. So it is interesting, and I've have yet to get to one of their events, but I'm excited to in the near future get to one of the events. But they seem to have jumped on the scene and done things the right way, and it's seeing people that are well respected in the fight game connecting themselves to the promotion makes it like, oh yeah, like you can see they're the good things that they're doing. So man, we haven't even talked about the opponent. You're fighting Dustin Pape. He's another veteran, man. It's interesting. Ohio versus he's from Indiana. And I know he's been around the regional scene for a long time. I don't think he's ever really gotten like a huge like big fight. But what's your thought on the matchup and facing a guy who's been around for for maybe not as long as you, but been around and another veteran?
It tells me about his. I think people right now are fighting for different reasons. I think some of that is media and marketing related first, rather than maybe the spirit of it. I think my previous era was a little bit more direct and a little bit more, different style of fighting in a way, as well. He, I believe, will be 34 by the time we fight. So he had a fight earlier this year, but it was his first one in about 7-8 years as well. So he took a fair amount of time off as well. So that's interesting. Like I said, he was a 34-year-old man. I feel like Indiana, Midwest, anyone's grit's going to come forward, is not scared. There's not much film out there on him. There's not much film out there on him. But I feel like I understand his character and the way he's going to scrap.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's awesome. One of the things too, they put out, as you mentioned, AFP does the production and the events, and thankfully I will be able to be sitting at home as I'm expecting to be most likely actually in the hospital with my wife and our little baby boy that's going to be born probably the day before the fight. But I'm still gonna be watching fights, man. That's the first thing that I'm going to introduce him to, is like, here's Brian Rogers. Here you go. Yeah, I'm excited, and it's nice for me to follow MMA so closely, to be able to easily watch the events and not have to like chase down cell phone camera footage of the events, and just be able to sit there and watch it. But that's a huge thing too, right, man? How the promotion presents themselves and puts and makes it good, and then really puts the fighters first and foremost, I think, is one of the things I like about this promotion as well. Last but not least, man, I know you've got a lot of support. You don't get here by yourself. Anything you want to mention? Stage is yours. I always like to give people that time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A bit of the full circle and transformation around this journey has been trying to live certain values and ideals, within myself. And I have a lot of gratitude for a lot of the number of people that I'm just connected to. This is why I proudly wear this on my chest and try to be a light and a representative for that energy. My brand is called Reciprocity. And the reason it's called reciprocity is the idea of mutual exchange and benefit to people doing something or working something to grasp or get to a new space that they otherwise couldn't independently. Everyone's got slightly tweaked different versions of that, but I'm big on that. And you get a lot of that in team sports and athletics and in relationships and meeting and partnering with people. And I realized kind of like post-COVID 2021 that there was like not a lot of like reciprocity and good energy in the world. People were very leading from a fearful place, fear-based leadership. And I see this personally in professional environments that I would be in. And I would think back to like, I think a lot of companies and businesses and people put things in these corporate ideas. And it's like, you should look at more at sports and those relationships and how people communicate and see how much better your ecosystem organization of business would be. And I've realized that we can bring the idea of reciprocity into our life through, there's actually transactional in this business, but there's emotional. There's transformational. Um, there's a lot of different branches within that, and I've kind of been working on trying to build a branding, marketing, personal development organism that has that across all fronts to be able to create new projects, businesses, creative activities, and endeavors with kind of a full awareness around that. So with that, like my community is great. I need to shout out my team and my clients. Our Tori's of our brand designers, Leanne's a project manager, Kelsey, director of operations, my buddy Egg is my lead camera op, Nathan, my YouTube editor. And I'm hoping not forget anybody else. But that's like my creative team. And then it's friends, family, people, community, people who vibe with my energy and understand what I'm trying to do, make and create. There's been a number of people who have donated to my Buy Me a Coffee fund that's going towards the film. We're putting a lot of resources into people, into creative people, and people that I feel are community through jiu-jitsu, martial arts, and small business spaces in Ohio and Colorado. We're trying to funnel that ecosystem and do some things together. So if you're watching this, you're probably directly connected to me. If not, you're a new person in my day. I heard you said earlier, you said building this fight world. I'm like, yeah, I think I can build a fight world and a life of what I'm doing with, my business and my life, my family and my people, where I do different martial arts ventures in a big way between Ohio and Colorado, and move in this camp that's right for me in my 41 years young body and make it happen.
Yeah, and last but not least, I gotta get out. I can't not I always love nicknames. So you started with the Predator, moved to the professional Predator, sorry, and now you're the strategist. Is that the official nickname of Brian Rogers, or is it still the Predator? Is the Predator still in there? I'm sure the Predator is in there somewhere, as well as the professional Predator. But what's the status on the nickname?
Man, ultimately, it's a duality that I'm really trying to live and step it in. I think my friends know me as Brian. Sometimes I write I'm Broad or I'm B-Raj. Instagram's and B-Raj a strategist from that. I think as a 41 years young athlete, I've been very strategic along this way. I think I don't know how people would brand me in an earlier. No, I'll say it. We didn't fight with a lot of strategy in our previous ND of our career. We fought on instinct. We fought like an animal. But if you watch the movie The Predator, he's a thinker. He's a plotter. He's in the tree. He's mowing you down. I think people knew me as the Predator for the violence at the end. Okay, I think people knew me as the Predator as the violence on the end and how he, for lack of a better word, splatter heads. In the movie,
Yeah,
and the way I would finish people. But people forget about like the watching, the observing, the tactical training, and now we're seeing that even in that brand film universe of the Predators, we're learning more about them, and it's. As a predator, you have to also be a strategist. And so I believe probably on Saturday night that will be announced as the Predator, because that's ultimately how we're here to fight and how we're here to compete. We're here to fight. Based on how I fight in the all aspects and just parts of me, I think that's where the strategist parts comes in.
awesome. I love it. So the duality, like you said, the maybe the Predator in the cage, the strategist outside of the cage. You can have multiple nicknames. That's the best of them do have 6-7 nicknames. So yeah, I mean it's been so great catching up with you. I feel like and it's the I think that the interesting you think about a lot of things in a different way than a lot of fighters do. And I think that I know a lot of fighters listen and watch this podcast, and I think people can take a lot from you, and maybe because fighting is such a carnal thing, right? And I think that you have obviously that piece of it, but then there's so much more to you than that. And that's one of the things that I love about this podcast is the humanization of it, and learning people's stories and learning about people and bringing that to life versus just like, hey, like you beat this guy up, you won this fight, you lost this fight. Like that's not what I'm trying to bring to life. And that is the most interesting aspect of the sport to me. And people that are not maybe like not even super fans, but people that are not closely connected to the sport, like see it as a blood sport, human cockfighting that John McCain famously said. And I always love going back and seeing that other side of it as well. And that's what has always attracted me to the sport of is people like you that prove that it is more than just a blood sport. It's there's strategy, and it is the ultimate sport, truly. And that's what has fascinated me from the early days of me learning about even what MMA was. So it was so great catching up with you, and I feel like yeah, a lot of people that are maybe younger generation, new generation fighters that come into it maybe will hopefully listen to you and learn a few things from you, and then maybe listen and watch and learn a few things from you inside the cage on Saturday, August 23rd. Man, I am so pumped to see you back in there, and I didn't know if I'd ever see you fight again, especially after few years out of the cage. But I'm very excited. I know there's tons of fans that are excited to see you back in there as well, man. So definitely looking forward to it.
Appreciate it. Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing that in me. It's funny, something I've been sitting on but haven't really said or announced. I want to use it as an opportunity to announce it. A lot of people have come up to me recently, been like, Brian, you should be a manager in MMA. You should be managing guys. And as I hear that, I'm like, I don't want to be booking people fights and doing all that. Like, that's not a good use of my skill or time. I'm very interested in being a brand manager and support for mixed martial arts athletes who really want to play this game. And I think of that just like my business in terms of their branding, who they are personally on outside of the cage and in the cage. Okay, like what the person you want to be is. How can we market you? I know you guys don't want to sell tickets. You can figure out a couple things that help you, and then what do you need to do from a real personal development journey to get your life in order to be able to fight better? My master's is in sports science, coaching, and leadership. I'm a former teacher and educator. This is actually a service and an offer that I'm going to be creating for certain older athletes that are going to be positioning and transitioning. They want to build their business, build their YouTube, that are going to be leaving the cage soon. I've been there. And that's who also I'm going to be kind of helping, serving, and working with as well. So those are two kind of pillars that have popped off for that. I'm kind of becoming a living embody of it with what I'm doing in my pivot in my journey. But I want to give a shout out to two fighters from two different camps. Dusty Schaefer and my training partner, Strong Style John Cunningham, are two guys over this process that I've really got to build a relationship with and become friends with. And I just really like giving that energy to fighters and people. I just want to support people in the conversation. I think sometimes the conversation can change someone's life if there's a shift and there's a perspective. And then I think if you can just align system and process behind that, guys, like we've seen the best in the world do, you can be successful. And I think I'm an example of that within my career. And it's funny, you look back at my record, there's some ups, there's some downs. I have to audit that, but I feel like I'm in a good position to help people be their best self.
Yeah, fighters take up Brian on that, man, and having a talk. I don't know John, but having talked to Dusty in the past, that did not surprise me at all. That he's someone that you've connected with, and seeing his journey and how he's doing things in his own unique way and being his authentic self. That's not surprising. That's another great example of a fighter that is doing more than just being a fighter, right? So. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to publish this episode and then to see you. It'll be this weekend. So when this comes out, it'll be just a few days away from your fight. Yeah, AFP 103. It'll be on. Yeah, this will be on YouTube. This will be on.
Cool.
Cut up some stuff, clips, and put it on social media. But yeah, the fight will be on Spectation Sports. You can check out Brian B. Raj, the strategist, on Instagram. Yeah, man, thanks so much.
Appreciate you.
All right. Take it easy.
Have a good night.